Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Jewish Divorce Project. I'm your host, Noam Rauscher.
And I'm your host, Leeron Tal.
Join us as we kvetch
and kvel about Judaism and divorce from our perspective as two Jewish professionals and two divorce coaches.
And two Jewish parents with lots of experience and plenty of opinions. Welcome back, everyone, to the Jewish Divorce Project. I'm Noam Rauscher.
And I'm Leeron.
I'm beginning to think that an introduction also needs to include something like, and lots of headaches.
Depends on the day.
And plenty of pains in the ass.
Yeah.
How you been?
Good. It's been a while.
I know. Nice winter break there.
Nice to be back.
Yep.
Yeah. I'm like, where have we been? What have we been doing? So much.
A lot's gone on. I'm fucking tired. Let me just say that. Let me be blatantly honest with you.
Me too. I've been hustling, working. I got to go to a really nice bar mitzvah over the break. Oh,
yeah. Very nice.
The day finally arrived.
Oh, yeah. I'd love to hear. I would love to expound on that, maybe. Yeah.
Mazel tov.
Thank you. Let me just say, even before I get to it, it was a wonderful weekend, but 2024 is kicking my ass already.
Oh, no.
Like, it is just nasty, in actually lots of good ways. But just, there's stuff going on, which we're going to talk about later when we talk about shit you have to do alone in divorce land. Had the bar mitzvah, and it's been a long time coming, talked about in conversation here at several different, points with different experts on things or different topics, and it finally came, and those last couple days leading up to it, like you and I were texting, and even it was like, I think a week and a half to 2 weeks leading up to it, I was saying things like my brain is on bar mitzvah mode. And I've got or bar mitzvah brain, and it's just mush, and I couldn't think of anything else. Did I cover that detail? Did I talk to that person? Will I have enough money for this detail? Is Judah ready? Did I do the right thing with suits? Will there be enough food? Did we schedule things out right? Will my parents get into town okay? Will my siblings get into town okay? Who has a ride from the airport? Will they have food waiting for them? I need to make gift bags for their arrival. And what goes in those gift bags? And how much money do I spend? And you can clearly see that the list is just endless in terms of what went on. And it's like a whole, this was, it was as much a rite of passage for me as it was for my kid.
Yeah, well,
it really was.
Talk about doing things alone. Everything you just mentioned, it's so much easier if you have an adult with you in the house going through this, supporting you, bouncing ideas off of. So although you're planning it with your co-parent, you still are alone in a lot of it. So that part's really challenging.
And then if you have to think carefully about the conversations that you do have with your co-parent, that's just like a whole other thing that I wonder if married couples take for granted. Like, you could bring up something about the bar mitzvah and relatively expect your partner to kind of be there for you in the process, but that's kind of up for grabs with divorce.
Yeah, and there's that extra layer of planning of dividing roles. But that takes time too and energy.
And
you did it.
I think my ex and I actually handled things really nicely, particularly in those last 2 weeks. A couple of months leading up to it, a month leading up to it, we had Tamar. Oh my God, Tamar Burris on, and she instructed me to write an email, and I did that, and I think that was very well received because my ex sent one in like and kind back to me, and then leading up to it, she and I were having almost regular conversations, either over text or over phone or in person if we had the opportunity, just to kind of touch base on things. And then even within 48 hours of it, we were still talking about things we didn't even like guest lists are one thing and food is another thing. But then there's this whole component of, well, we're all going to be sitting together in the sanctuary. So how do we set that up? Right.
Who sits where? So that in the moment it's not uncomfortable. You have to plan. That's what I'm saying. It takes a whole nother level of planning in addition to the usual party planning and getting ready for the service.
And not only just for us so we know, but also for family, because they're coming in, they're like, what do we do? Do you want us all to sit together? Should we all sit together? Right? What does that look like? Give us some guidance here. And you just don't necessarily think of all those things. Right?
Yeah. Managing the family's anxiety. I remember, this was for our families.
Oh my God.
The first time in 5 years they'd seen each other. And I was hearing from them, they were nervous and how do we act? And I would hear things like, well, I hope she doesn't do that. And I had to literally tell my family, guys, you just come with good energy. I cannot be responsible for also managing your anxiety when I have my own and I'm dealing with the kids. You guys need to all just figure it out.
Right.
I
That's
made it
exactly right.
easy. I told them where to sit. All those things are important.
Nice.
You set them up for success. But at the
Right.
end of the day, it's like, I can't manage everyone's anxiety.
That's exactly right. And but to that end, I also didn't want to create an environment, and I don't think my ex did either. We were both working together and on the same page about this. We knew that it was going to be awkward enough as it was, and it was awkward at certain points. I'm not going to lie about that. But at the same point, it wasn't ominous. I don't even think that's a word, but there wasn't any like hate going on,
Animosity. Yeah.
right? There wasn't any animosity or anything like that. There was divorce, that was clear, but like that's just part of what it is. And instead, people were very friendly and talking to one another. And so that was really nice to know. But it was important, I think, for my ex and I to set that tone between us so that we could say to them that things are good between us,
Hmm.
right? That we were really working together and having these conversations. And so that became really important.
Well, everyone in the family and the kids and the clergy, everyone's going to feed off of your energy.
Right.
So if the two of you were showing that you were okay and you were collaborating, working together, that energy just spilled out. And I, as somebody sitting there
Right.
in the audience, sitting there watching and everything, I even thought it was lovely that you guys did your speech together.
Thank you.
I was really impressed that you kind of went back and forth and did a piece of it together. That was really nice and that was really united. And I could tell Judah really appreciated that.
Right. We spoke to basically what our energy was to be able to do at that moment, what we were
Yeah,
able to do in that moment.
that
So
was nice.
so my ex contributed her best and I contributed my best, and that's really just what it was.
Hmm.
And it just needed to be that moment where our son could see us do that,
I
right?
can
And where
say
we could do that together.
it didn't feel from somebody sitting in the audience like this was a divorced family,
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
even though I know what's going on. It didn't feel that way.
And I don't necessarily care if people know that either, but my
Yeah.
point is to say that like I wouldn't want them making any assumptions because I think there are assumptions and I think I'm afraid of people's assumptions in that way
Hmm.
about it. And I shouldn't be, right? That's
Yeah.
my own,
Yeah.
I got to work on that. But my point is to say I I wanted it, but I wanted it much more for my kids.
Yeah.
And I wanted it for everyone involved, that it could be, and particularly for my son, for his bar mitzvah to be a celebratory one where the whole family came together. And I know my ex wanted that as well,
Yeah.
right?
You guys
So
did a great job there.
and it was a win. It really was. It was a win, and for everyone, I think. And my son had a great time. He had smiles. The pictures are fantastic. He looked amazing in his suit. It
Yeah,
was
he did.
crazy. It was crazy to see them in their suits. Like that is it's like they all look like little bankers and lawyers.
Yeah. Yeah. It was definitely
Uh,
powerful men in there.
my youngest likes to slick back his hair now, right? And so literally, he's there with the hair stuff and the comb in the mirror,
So
pushing it
cute.
back.
Everyone
And to
was very
see him in a
handsome.
suit, he was like total like banker, Wolf of Wall Street. I was like, oh my God, I'm not ready for this. I'm really
It was
not.
great.
But it was so, it really was so wonderful. And yet, like, if the synagogue asked me, they said, like, can you give us some feedback about the experience? Right? I'd have the feedback about, just generally what it's like going through a bar mitzvah because it's nerve wracking. And I don't think anyone checked in with us to really see how we were doing, like from the synagogue.
Mm.
And I'm not saying that like they're assholes or anything about that. I'm not naming the synagogue or anything, but my point is to say that like, um, maybe they were just really busy. I think
Well,
everyone was really busy, but like this is a first time thing. And like for someone to check in and be like, how do you feel about all this? Your child's getting older, right? There's a lot going on. And then maybe also for one of them to say, like, we know you're divorced. Is there
yeah.
anything we need to know?
Well, you and I have had this conversation when I was on as a guest because I
Right.
was at
That's
the
my
time
point.
working as an event coordinator at a synagogue, and I was personally very sensitive to divorced families. But
Right.
I think that is something that a lot of synagogues need to up their game on. We've talked about this. If you run a synagogue and you'd like some consultation on that,
Right.
we're here for you.
Right.
But honestly, it's an area that definitely needs some support. And in general, how synagogues treat divorced families, there's a lot more that could be done.
I don't
But
think
the
they,
bar mitzvah
yeah.
specifically is a big one.
When you think about all the details that go into it, right, and just all the conversations that need to be had, and I'd venture to say that probably most synagogue employees are married, so they're not thinking about those dynamics of the conversations. And I'm willing to bet a lot of the people who are handling the making sure details get covered and stuff is taken care of for the bar mitzvah are the moms, right, and
Mm-hmm.
not the dads.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of that's just kind of part and parcel of just the natural kind of heteronormative conversation that exists within synagogue life.
Well, in my experience, the families that were married, yeah, it was the mom that I was dealing with. But the divorced families, the fathers were very much equally
Oh,
involved,
really?
more so because
They were really.
they were really looking at it in a way of like, I mean, I remember, for instance, in our
It's
situation,
actually really good to
I
know.
planned our wedding. He didn't know where, he didn't really pay
Right.
much attention
Right.
to what we spent money on.
I'm
But when
thinking
it
about
came
that
to
now.
the
What
bar
I
mitzvah,
did.
when he came to
Right.
the bar mitzvah, he wanted to know every single thing.
Really.
And it's hard for me because I'm like, you didn't care last time we did a
Right.
big thing, but it's
Right.
different now. Um,
But this is also kind of what you want, right? I'm sure there's some frustration with,
yeah,
if only it happened in the context of marriage,
yeah,
right? Like
yeah,
if only
yeah.
you had been together long enough for him to be like, oh yeah, now I give a shit about these details,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
but it give a shit when you listen. A lot of times, and I don't mean to be stereotypical in this sense, but a lot of women I know feel this way of like you weren't that maybe the father didn't really act as much of a co-parent when they
Right,
were married,
right.
but they're a co-parent
Now,
now.
right.
Um,
We've talked about this and how much
yeah,
responsibility do you take for them and what's the
yeah.
learning curve with something like that. Yep.
So for some men, becoming a single father makes them a more involved, hands-on dad, hands-on father
As it should,
than they were
right?
before.
As it should.
Yeah, so that's a benefit for the children right there.
That's exactly right. And then you have to adjust to it as the co-parent.
And the women have to let go and
Sorry
understand
about
that.
that. So yeah, it was just it was a whirlwind, really a whirlwind, and I'm thinking about rituals that we should have for parents more so than the oh man, everything's slipping my mind. That's how tired I am. Baruch Shepatrani, the blessing about relieving yourself from the responsibility of raising the child in certain ways. We didn't say that. I thought we were going to, but that's kind of part and parcel of the experience, I think, inherently. But I think there needs to be more for parents going through this too, just in the sense of how do you really step back in that way? And what
Hmm.
ways do you still need to stay involved? And just how do you make all that work? So I'm fascinated by it and like I'm overwhelmed by it. And I probably won't be able to really fully articulate stuff until a couple months from now. But
You should though feel very
thank you.
good and
Thank you.
accomplished that
Thank you.
you survived and went through this
Oh my
hurdle.
God.
And I know,
Ugh,
it gives you this feeling a little bit of like if we can do this, we can do a lot
that's
together.
exactly
And
right.
I know that's how I felt. I mean, for us, the bar mitzvah shifted our relationship in a really good way.
That's exactly what I said.
And
Right.
so
Right.
you should celebrate that.
I really appreciate that. And thank you
When
very
you're
much
when
for
you're not as
coming.
tired after you've had some rest, we can celebrate that.
Thank you. Thank you very much for coming. It meant a lot to have you there. I appreciate
Yeah,
it.
of
How
course.
was your winter break? What's been going on with you?
A lot. I've been really trying to take advantage. I had the kids. This was the first year that I had them for 1 week and he had them for a full week of the
Oh,
break.
wow.
So that was a long time, not having the kids, and I really used it for some self-care. I took care of myself. I did a lot of, work on my business, for my coaching business and for the solo moms community I'm building. So that was great.
Nice.
Um,
Yeah, you guys are meeting in coffee shops and things like that. I keep seeing the pictures online, all these women getting together.
yeah, we did a really awesome holiday party,
Oh,
which was really fun.
this was after the Hanukkah party?
No, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, we did a holiday party for the solo moms, and that was great. I got some places to offer like really cool auction. Like we did a raffle. One woman won Pilates and like all these cool things.
Oh, wow.
I do my monthly coffee talks. We're going to be doing a little Galentine's Day event at a local store. So yeah, I'm just kind of still looking and partnering and doing a couple different things. And really trying to do more in person. That's what everybody seems to want.
Have you been able to do the thing with Alexis yet?
Not yet.
Okay.
Not yet.
Gotcha. Was it Alexis that I'm thinking of? No, not
No,
Alexis.
Kate.
Kate. That's right.
Yeah, we had that event booked and we didn't get a good turnout. So
Oh,
we
I'm sorry to
decided
hear that.
to hold off on that because I think
Okay.
it was Martin Luther King weekend and it just wasn't good planning. But
It was a lot. Yeah.
we'll definitely do something
It'll
with her
happen next
again.
time.
Yeah, for sure. And then I've been picking up some work, as single moms, you gotta
Yeah.
side hustle and get what you
Yeah,
can.
yeah,
And
yeah,
so
yeah,
I actually started working for a really awesome organization I'm excited about. It's the She Ready Foundation.
What's the She Ready Foundation?
It's Tiffany Haddish's foundation, nonprofit that supports youth in the foster system.
Very cool.
So there's a lot of cool programming there, and I'm brought on to do to produce the big gala, the big fundraiser. And it's a
Ah,
prom
okay.
and celebrity guests and red carpet and the whole shebang, and I'm really excited. So this past weekend I got to go work. We got to go to her show and then we were selling merchandise.
Mm-hmm.
So all of her merchandise, all the money that she brings in from merchandise, from book sales, from everything, all goes to her foundation.
Mm-hmm.
So I got to do that, and then we had a board retreat, and so
My
it's
gosh.
great. It was really
Mazel
fun.
tov.
I'm exhausted, but it was really great, and
You're exhausted in the good way
I'm
because
just
you're
doing it all.
got everything going on. That's
Yeah, it's just
wonderful.
taking a lot of like intense, and of course the kids like sports is just all the sports are happening right
Right.
now, and my kids have an agent, and they've been getting auditions, and so
Whoa.
it's just massive planning. I feel like
Oh my gosh.
it's just taking from the moment I wake up till the moment I go to bed. I'm just busy, busy, busy. But it's good. I do better when I'm busy.
Well, but you're just like on top of stuff. You're really making stuff happen. You've been taking the steps, and this is the fruits of your labor are paying off. That's
Yeah,
wonderful.
yeah, thank you. And I
Good for you.
decided this is the year. This is the year I'm gonna have that abundance. I'm gonna really only take on things that I feel good about, and where I can really, spread my wings. I'm really excited that I get to. It's different, I worked at a synagogue, and there's a lot of
Hmm.
rules and politics and people involved,
Hmm.
and
And now there's not.
micromanaging and all those kind of things.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm given a lot of freedom now, which is great.
That's really
So
wonderful. That's like
that's what I
that's
need.
got to be like a dream,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
For you don't have
Knock
someone
on wood.
standing over your shoulder the whole time
Yeah, yeah. I'm like, I
or
mean,
needing to worry about the menu so much.
yep,
Yep.
yep.
Or start
So
times for things.
yeah, so they're just kind of like go with it. I got to know the board. Everyone's like, go for it. We're good.
Hey, that's
It's
wonderful.
gonna be
Mazel
awesome.
tov.
But yeah, so I'm just busy.
Congratulations. Good for you.
Yeah,
Good for you. Are you too busy to take us to commercial break?
absolutely not. All right, we'll see you after the break. The law offices of Alexis M. Langer provide estate planning services, helping California families, business owners, and individuals build a plan that protects them today and preserves their legacy for generations to come. For more information, visit www.alexislangerlaw.com.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Jewish Divorce Project. I hope you enjoyed the first part of our conversation before that lovely commercial break. Leeron and I wanted to talk about particularly one of the hard things that happens in divorce life and in divorce land, that is, doing shit by yourself.
Yep, there's a lot of it.
Yep. Like how you just kind of accept it. And yeah, it's just kind of part of what it is.
Yeah.
It's a grind out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. What are some things that you have to end up doing by yourself or that you've had to do by yourself?
Well, I remember, first off the bat, I've mentioned this when we've talked in the past with Shini in real estate about how I had to move so last minute and just was not prepared for that. And my ex didn't want to help me, even though it was the house, it was all our stuff,
Yeah.
I had to just
Yeah.
figure it out. And so packing and running a garage sale and all of those things. I think I told you he showed up to the garage sale to pick up the kids at one point. I tried to sell him his own clothes.
Mhm.
I was like, would you like a jacket?
How were you overcharging him?
Yeah.
So like, I didn't pay that
I
much
was
for
like,
it
"You
when it
didn't
was
take
new.
it." So, but that was a lot. And I remember I sold all of their baby stuff because it was kind of this like, even if I were to have more kids, I want new experiences. And that was really emotional. And just going through that alone was
Yeah.
a lot.
Yeah.
And then moving, and I remember when we found our place and going around and looking for places, all that stuff alone is just, you don't have that adult to bounce the ideas off of. Even though I have like amazing friends and supportive parents, it's always like ultimately your decision. That's what everyone says. And sometimes you're just like, I just want someone to help me make this decision.
The emotional labor of it is really draining. And
Yeah.
that kind of sucks worse than everything else. Because
Yeah.
it's like, also, it's not just that you can't bounce it off someone else. You also can't pass it off to someone else and
Rely
say,
on anyone.
well, or be able to say, I'm not handling this one. I handled the last one. I need you to handle this one so I can take a break.
Yeah,
right?
or knowing your strengths and weaknesses,
Right.
and you're kind of like, oh shit, I have
I
to
have
do
to
the
do this
things that I'm
anyway.
not good at. Yeah.
Right. Which could be an advantage, right? I mean, I think that's
Learn.
ultimately, like, if we're going to fast forward to the end, right, or just say like what the ultimate lesson is of all this, and there's a lot to have, still a conversation in between. But the ultimate lesson is like it's a growing experience,
Oh yeah.
right? I mean, it really, like, you can either say I don't know how to handle that stuff because it's not my strength, and fail at it time and time again, or you could figure out a way to solve it, and that may mean that you shop it out to someone else, but at least you've solved the problem.
Yeah.
Right.
I think for women too, something I went through is like my ex-husband was handy, right? So there were a lot of things he did around the house and fixed. And I'll never forget, like right when we moved, it was like very new into the divorce. the dresser, those IKEA dressers, how the bottom can kind of fall
Oh, I
out
hate them. That
sometimes.
happens to me every single
It's
time.
so annoying,
If it
right?
doesn't break in putting it together because it's all cheap balsa wood now, right? If you don't get exactly right, you can't get the piece out, and then you're screwed forever.
Or you shove too much sitting there and then the bottom falls out and then so I
That's what
remember
she
we went
said.
to
But okay. Sorry. Had to.
That's okay. It's my kids are all into that's what
My
she
kids are
said
doing
jokes too.
exactly the
Those are the
same thing.
best.
It's all penis jokes, and that's what she said.
Yeah.
Like, that's the only thing that happens,
Yeah.
even after a bar mitzvah. That's it.
So I remember the moment when we pulled out the drawer and Micah was like, "Oh no, what are we gonna do?" Like he freaked out and it was like, Abba's not here to fix it. And in that moment, I also was like, I wanted to just fall apart because it was like, it was after like one of those days of like everything went wrong or whatever it was. It was just like the grand finale of the frustrations. And in that moment, when I saw him get so like feeling like, oh no, we don't have him here to fix it, it just totally empowered me to be like, you know what, grab the drill. You and I are going to do this together.
Mm,
Let's figure it out.
mm,
And then it just became such an awesome moment
mhm,
of my kids being able to see mom can do things, women can do things. There's that piece of it that's really empowering, but
mhm,
also just including him in it,
mhm.
being like, it just started this trend of like, we're a team, we do things together. Um,
I've
and
definitely used that to
and
my
that's a
advantage.
really those are the moments that you don't feel alone. But yeah, when it happens and you're like, oh no, I have to do this. I mean,
I get really
sometimes,
pissed in those moments. I realized it. I may have spoken about it before, but in therapy, I discovered I almost said bar mitzvah, but my Bermuda triangle of emotions, which is abandoned, burdened, and confused. And if I find myself like in those three emotions at the same time, I'm likely to get really upset and angry.
say those three emotions again.
Abandoned, burdened, and confused, right? And so divorce automatically feels like an abandonment at times,
Mm-hmm.
right? And like I get upset when I'm doing things alone and I feel like it's a lot to deal with. Like not
Mm-hmm.
only like the emotional element of it and the energy of just making the decisions or accepting the responsibility for it and then giving myself the willpower to do it, but then the physical act of actually doing it as well,
Yeah.
right, becomes really tiresome too. And then that becomes really frustrated, and I can't, like having the literal physical strength to be able to do it. And thank God for antidepressants, because like that's my backup picture right there. Like I don't go, they've helped me out so much, and I
Mm-hmm.
can't thank my therapist and my
That's awesome.
psychiatrist enough for like getting me on that track. It's been wonderful. But like like that's what it is for me. It's like the actual doing things, and not that I mind doing things. I love doing things, right? But I do also have that, like we all do, that threshold. If it's like I need to just fucking sit down. Like I have this image of my mother on Passover and my grandmother too. They used to spend all day on their feet preparing stuff, a couple of days in a
Mm-hmm.
row. And then there'd be times where like they'd find a break between things. Something would be cooking or whatever it was, that they could actually like sit down and pour a glass with ice of Diet Coke and sit down on the couch and just kind of sip it in the
Yep.
process. And like I find I need that.
Yeah.
I need that sip of
You
Coke.
remember that? That's a cute memory to
Oh
remember.
my God.
I
Just
do.
seeing that feels refreshing.
Yeah. I have to say there was a moment when we moved in and I really like, I wanted to get the house to feel in place as soon as possible. So, I mean, within days we were sitting at our table, like having dinner and everything was in place. And, I worked my ass off and I had that moment of
Yep.
sitting there and having that, and
The
chilling.
sip.
And the kids were like, wow, like, you're like superwoman. Like they were so
Really?
impressed. And I
Oh
was
wow.
like, this is amazing. Like it felt so good that they were able to acknowledge that I did all that on my own.
Right.
And that's where, especially having boys, I think it's really important. And then I remember there
What, that
was,
they see you as a woman doing things on your own?
yeah, yeah.
I completely agree with that, and I also think
But it's also not like I don't need a man kind of a situation,
well, but
but
it's so interesting too because I'm trying to give them the life skills that they need to have if they were to live alone, which is essentially to do everything for themselves,
mm-hmm,
right? That's
mm-hmm,
really what it is, right? You shouldn't rely on other people to do it for you. You're going to need to do it for yourself, right? So I would think that even as a mom, not wanting to show them that you can't handle it, but also wanting them to have the opportunity to develop those skills. There's got to be a fine balance between all that.
Yeah, listen, I've always been very handy and able. My father's a contractor.
Right.
Like I was very when we first met, I was like, I don't need your help. I can open my own door. I can do my this. You know,
That jar of pickles ain't no problem for
that was
me.
me, right? But then when you're married, it's like, oh, there's a spider. It got very convenient to have someone else take care of
Really?
things, and I didn't.
You like this the chivalrous element of it.
I did,
Right.
and I got used to that,
Right.
and that's what my kids saw in our home.
Right.
There were things that he did, and
Right.
So it meant a lot, I think, for them to see that I'm okay and I can survive on my own, even though there were times that I was like, "Ugh, damn, I wish I had a man to do this shit. Like, I don't want to do this stuff.
It's funny because there are times I'm like, do I need to get married or do I really just like need an extra pair of hands around the house? Like, is there another trusted adult that I could live with? I don't need to be romantically involved, but like
No.
someone who wants to also help take care of the kids.
Or
right?
Have enough money to pay someone to do
Right,
these
like
things.
you want to rent out a room, go right ahead. I'll give you a lower rate too if you also help take care of my kids. Like you have to pick them up for school and make dinner for us 3 days a week.
Yeah.
Right?
Well,
that
I always say
totally logical.
I would much rather have another mom living with me than waiting for a partner that may or may not.
A divorced families commune. I can only imagine what that would look like. The divorce kibbutz.
The mommunes, they're happening in other states.
Are they really?
Mm-hmm.
Mommunes?
Yep.
Are they just single moms all living together?
Yeah, I'm actually I have a group of moms that are talking about it in our group. It's like, instead
One
of
big
living
house or like a community?
Well, there's different ways of doing it, right? I mean, ideal, how awesome would it be to have like a kibbutz, like a big community? But imagine getting like a big 6-bedroom house with like 3 single parents that have kids, and
wow,
you can have a pool and
that'd
you can have
house.
a game room and all of that kind of stuff. And then you help each other. There's people helping with rides and with babysitting and with groceries. And this one does lunches these days. And you help each other raise your kids. You ultimately save money. All the things you're going in on.
It's a brilliant idea.
So
if I'm still single in a couple of years, let me think about that idea. It's not bad. It's not bad at all.
Yeah, could work if you have the right people. The kids have to get along. The parents have to. There's a whole thing. But
are there things that you feel like you don't get to do because you're always doing stuff alone, and like you're just so drained that you don't have the bandwidth to say I'm going to try something new or I'm going to break from routine? So I'm not going to do X or I'm not going to do Y, or I wish I did this, but I don't have the energy for it.
I'm probably not the best person to ask that because I seem to have a lot of energy.
You do it anyway.
And I do a lot, and I'm always out and about.
You're a terrible person.
People are always like, how do you do all that? Like I do. I find the energy because I just really have this like, I'll sleep later attitude of like, just enjoy life, do it all.
Really?
Yeah, I kind of do.
Why?
And then it catches up with me, and I like experiencing things.
Why? What happens to you when it catches up?
I need to take a couple days to just like chill and
That's
sleep.
When you go on a total bender.
Yeah.
And wake up somewhere you don't recognize. Like, oh.
Take a minute.
Jeez. I shouldn't have taken on that extra project. I feel like it's cooking. Like I want to like learn how to make new dishes and stuff. And yet like my energy level towards it is no.
You know what? I agree. I'm more like, I'm not cooking as much as I'd like to. I'm doing a lot of like the throwing stuff together from Trader Joe's or, easy food. But yeah, there's things I would like to be better at, obviously.
I like the fact that you go camping so often. I wish I went camping with not only that type of energy, but also that type of ease. And I think I'm willing to bet that's what probably makes it so possible for you, is that it's relatively easy to do. So you have the equipment so kind of readily available that you just hook it up and go.
Yeah. And that's kind of the only kind of trip I can do. I can't really, afford to do big hotels or fly anywhere. Camping is so easy and the kids are just happy. Even if we literally go and sit by the beach for a day with the, and be outside.
But the weather is so conducive to it.
Yeah.
75% of the time.
And you know what? That's when we really
more
bond.
So even if you don't care.
That's how I grew up. My dad worked. He's a contractor. He worked day night all the time. But when we would go away, back then he also didn't have a cell phone, so he wasn't working. My memories of spending time as a family are really on our camping trips, because without the distraction,
That's really nice.
So I think it's important to
take
those moments.
Get them away from the technology. That's the other thing. Is that I feel like I give them so much technology time because I don't have the energy to do other things.
I know. That's the constant.
And like the break time in between, while I love it, even though it's a 5-day swing at times, it's almost not enough. And then they come back, and it's about getting back into the routine again, and like then comes more tech time, and I'm always fighting that.
I
And
know.
like everyone says, like, forgive yourself, it's okay, they'll be fine. And like I'm not buying that stuff anymore.
I've been really trying to get a little more strict with it at night because I'm really seeing it affecting like they're not going to. It's hard to go to sleep, and I mean, how can you go from playing a video game and being in this intense world and shutting it off and going to sleep? So I tell them ahead of time now, like, okay, at this point, devices are done, and I give them like a time that it's done, and so they have to manage it and utilize their time.
See, and I gotta say, this is why I think parallel parenting sucks.
Oh, because the
Right.
rules are
And
different
I
in
get it.
different
Like
homes.
my ex is entitled to parent whatever way she wants, no judgment.
Yeah.
And I don't want anyone judging me either. But my point is to say, like, I wish it was just easier. I wish you could just like find some way to agree.
Well, but you know what though? The kids know that there's different rules and different ways of living in each
I
home.
know, I
And they
know.
don't, and I think it's okay. I know that the way that their routine at their dad's house is not the same as mine. What was really hard is that he had them the week leading up to school from winter break. And I was like, oh, damn. Like,
They're gonna be
they've been going to
exhausted.
sleep late every night. They're
Yeah,
like jet lagged.
yeah.
I normally like make sure that the days leading up, we start to go to sleep earlier. I knew they weren't going to do that there. And they were wrecks when I picked him up from school on Monday. But it is what it is. I mean, what can I? He's the one who had to deal with exhausted children.
Yeah.
So yeah, it took me a while to get here, but I'm finally at a point where I'm just like,
When I'm upset about parallel parenting, that's my exhaustion coming through. That's what it is. And it's me not also wanting to the responsibility of always telling my kids to stop watching TV.
well,
I
all
just,
you can do is
like I don't
manage how you are when they're with you.
I know that. I
Yep.
realize that. I'm just saying that, like, it's again, this is one of the elements of
Yeah.
doing it alone,
Yep.
right? Is that you're the enforcer all the time about it or not.
Well, what's interesting doing it alone, you have to be both, and that's really hard. You can't
I know.
be, I mean, you could say you're mom and dad. It's not even that. You're the disciplinarian and you're the fun parent. And that's confusing for the kids. They just, you have to be both.
I had to put my dog down this past weekend. She was so
Yeah.
old. Lucy was the best dog. My first dog, had her through everything, right? Had her through marriage and becoming a rabbi and becoming a father and traveling across the country and divorce and everything. And she never left my side. She was just old and weak. And, we had to put her down, but we did so with chocolate and beef on her lips. And she just, I believe it was very peaceful and also was very painful,
Yeah.
right, for all three of us. And I invited my ex over. I said, "Come on over." She had expressed in the past that she wanted to be there, so I said, "Let's make it happen." Um, and we were all able to be there, and it was really tough on my kids, but like having to arrange it and accept the responsibility was all on me,
Yeah.
and that was really tough because in that moment I also had to care for myself, right, and then also like worry about the kids because I'd planned it once and I couldn't go through it because I was so enraged by everything. This time it was much easier and I accepted the responsibility and the reality of it all.
Hmm.
But like it was really tough going through it all. And the funny part about it is after it was all done, drove her to the Humane Society for cremation. Like my back just like it was in the worst pain ever.
Mm.
And it was temporary though. And I think my muscles were actually like relieving themselves. Like they had been so kind of like clenched leading up
Hmm.
to that moment. And I just, we don't realize those things because it's just, this is the so everyday life of divorce, right? You're doing things alone in the
Hmm.
process of that. And you may not even realize how much you're taking on and how much your body is tensing up as a result of it. Because then I just felt my body like give out afterwards. And so it, it it's it's a tough thing to do, but it does help you ultimately develop those skills like we were talking about,
Yeah.
improve on weaknesses.
Well, I can totally relate. Not only that, my dog was also Lucy. And just, yeah, it feels like an end of an era because it's, because you had this dog before the kids, right?
Yeah.
It's,
Yeah.
it's a really, and the fact that she was there with you through all of these life changes, really the only one that was there through all of it.
That's my point.
Yeah, that
Right.
was really hard. But, I
Now
have
I'm
my
even more
new.
alone in the process.
Yeah.
Jeez. Ugh.
Yeah, it does. It feels lonely. I have to say though, I have my new puppy, Figgy, my new baby, and it's
That's a
been
fun dog.
so fun.
A really fun dog.
Yeah. And she's given me so much love, and it's been great. So,
Oh man. But it should also, this whole process of being alone should also, I think, inspire you not only to improve on weaknesses, but to
hmm
develop strengths that you didn't know of before,
well, I
right?
realized how much I don't like being alone and don't really know how to be alone.
Right.
When Lucy died, it was crazy. I was like, I really felt alone for the first time, and it took me
That's
a
what I'm afraid
year
of.
to get a new dog.
Really.
Yeah, and I kind of wanted to sit in that, and I do feel like I've grown and that I do know how to be alone now. Um, I also kind of started then enjoying not having anyone or anything to take care of when I didn't have the kids. So that's kind of why it took me this long.
For as much as I miss her, and I miss her terribly, it's actually to my advantage that I don't have a dog because I also have to find a new place to live. So
Mhm.
my landlord has, asked me to leave. So, having to do that also alone, finding the new place and then orchestrating the move and worrying about what's going to happen with the kids, that's enough. But like, if I had a dog, that would also limit my prospects tremendously.
Totally.
So in some ways, I've freed myself up that, I don't have to worry and care for Lucy anymore now, which is actually really good. I can have some of that emotional energy back.
Yeah.
Um, that's a real bandwidth thing that I didn't realize that I was giving so much energy to.
Maybe you should get like a lizard or a fish or something, some other pet.
No, but that's just it. Is that like part of the
It's nice
exhaustion
to
I've.
not
Well, but
do
I got to be
anything.
honest that like yeah, I do want a pet because I like caring for it, but it would have to be another dog or something like that or a cat. My point is to say though that um, I've been really exhausted because of all the caretaking I've been doing.
hmm
And I'm sure that's true for everyone in divorce. Like you're the sole caretaker and you have to take care of yourself too. And part of what's been frustrating about the loneliness that I've experienced recently is that there's nobody taking care of me.
Yeah.
Right. That's a very simple thing that I want. Right. So you
hmm
go for a massage and like that's one way of handling it, but it also isn't complete. It's not really what you want.
Yeah.
So that's I think another thing that's frustrating about it. But again, like going back to developing the skills you need to like thrive during that time, and then also I think figuring out how you can reach out to people because if you're wise about it, you realize that like you don't have to do it all alone. You talked about having a mommy group, right? There should be
Yeah.
dad groups out there for guys to turn to or other organizations, but even just a social network, people shouldn't be afraid to reach out to their friends and ask for some help.
100%. I think there's still, I think there's a big thing of like, you want to feel like you could do it on your own. You want to show that you're okay. But, being vulnerable and admitting that you need help is so important. I honestly, I think that for me, for so long, I didn't feel alone. I was like, I would fill my time. So I never really felt alone. And it also made me not really feel like I was needed a partner
Hmm,
or a spouse
right.
or anybody. So I wasn't dating in that mind frame of like, but when you learn to be alone and you actually can sit in it and you sometimes enjoy it, but then you can sometimes realize when you want, like, I'll tell you over the break, I think I've told you my parents, we have a boat in the marina.
Hmm,
And I was like, I need to change the scenery because I'm now working from home,
yeah.
home all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I went and just like moved in and lived on the boat for a couple days
Nice.
and took my laptop and was working. But I have to tell you, when I was walking around in the evening and I was watching all these couples holding
Yeah.
hands, and
Yeah.
I got really like, "Ah, it would have been really nice if I had someone that could come stay with me
Right.
for the weekend
Right.
and so I've just recently started realizing that I do want that person for those moments of just like sitting at home and talking about, but I didn't feel it for a long time. I didn't really need that or feel like it was missing for me.
That was also tough for me about the bar mitzvah in and of itself, you know, that I didn't have anyone to really hold hands with.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
And
that
what
would
you're
have been
saying, how
nice.
being taken care
Right.
of, um, I do a really good job of, like you said, getting massages, doing the things that make me feel like I'm taken care of. But it's so different
It's a
when
different thing.
emotionally taken care
Right.
of yeah.
It's a double-edged sword, the loneliness and the being alone, because eventually it leads to isolation or can be leading to isolation depending on how you handle it. And if you don't know how deep you've gotten into the isolation, then that's a problem.
But there are parts about being alone that are nice
Oh
that make
God, I
me
love
not
it.
necessarily the idea of living with someone's a little bit
I need it.
hard to
I I,
grasp.
I
I'm like,
need
it'd
it.
be nice to have someone sometimes.
I need it. I realize that about myself. I'm much more introverted than I am extroverted. I get exhausted from these meetings with people and I need time to recharge. And so aloneness really helps. At the same time, I don't want to be completely alone.
Yeah.
Like I want someone around. and being in a room with that other person is helpful. I don't need it all the time, but like that's the double-edged sword of it. It really is, I think, for all of us. But, from my own experience, yeah, I need the space, but I also want someone around. I need a hug. I need a cuddle. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you have to learn how to deal with those things. You really do. You have to learn how to deal with them without losing your shit and by just developing a plan of what works for you and what allows you to get shit done and feel relieved and who you can reach out to, whether it's a therapist or a coach or a mentor of some kind or your community,
Mm-hmm.
right? That mom group. I'm just always jealous how many text, groups that the women in my life have versus, how many text groups the guys in my life have, right? I've
Men
got
are
my
not as
family
good
and
at
I've got my
reaching
men's group.
out at all. Men
No,
are not as good as reaching out. I
no,
mean, I
they're
have a
not.
friend that's going through a divorce right now, and he reached out to me, and I was like, I was going to refer him to you for coaching, but he was just kind of even asking for help or talking about it was so hard for him that I
Yeah.
was like, we could just grab a drink, and I'm basically coaching him. But we're hanging out as friends, and he has no single friends to hang out with, and he doesn't really know how to reach out to guys, and so he keeps calling me to meet up for a drink. Like he just doesn't know. I don't know. I think men are just not as good about it.
They're not. Which is why we need so many overt messages about like bromance and guys getting together because it's just not something obviously we learn. Like we have socialization in school, but we're not really instructed about like how to make friends or maintain friendships, particularly when like you move away or grow apart or change or
Hmm.
anything like that. And it just doesn't come natural to us because guys are also not told to have a lot of friendships, right?
It's
They're
interesting that it comes a little more natural for women. Well, and I
because
also
you guys
think
are
a lot
allowed
of
to emotionally
married,
connect with each other more.
yeah,
Men
and I think
aren't.
a lot of couples, the women are kind of in charge of the social
They are.
calendar. So when you're married, you're used to like,
Friends just showing up for you.
yeah,
And the
like your
and
wife's planned you for you and her and a friend to get together so she could go do her thing
I,
or whatever.
And I'd be really curious to know about the depth of those relationships between those husbands, right? Is the core group of friends the wives and the husbands are just there, right? So are they just kind of having friendly conversation with one another and don't really know one another? Or are all the members of those couples friends with each other from some other experience? And do
Yeah.
they all have deep relationships with one another?
Well, I've seen guys who have like deep relationships because maybe they're still high school friends or, old friends like that. But it
Right,
is, I don't know that, I
right.
think women are, I mean, I
I'm
think
still in
women are
touch
pretty
with my
good at
friends from high
making new
school.
friends. Like I
Yeah,
have a lot of friends that I'm
yeah.
close with that are relatively new that I've met either through the kids' school or through,
Well, Caitlin Moran talks about
you
this in her
know,
book, What About Men? She, observes men talking and how we problem solve, right? And we kind of compare war stories as
hmm.
opposed to women who emotionally connect with things. So men often banter with one another. And she says there's an advantage to that men banter because there's an awkwardness to the conversation. And either you leave it in awkward silence or you do something about it. But the
Hmm.
bantering helps as opposed to changes anything. And oftentimes you don't have a long time for a long conversation. You're just trying to kill the time. So banter helps. But her whole point is to say that like guys could spend hours together with one another and not really go very deep emotionally with one another.
Well, and it's so interesting because I see it with my son who's 13, right?
Right.
And he's a very sensitive boy, and like they talk to me about everything,
Right.
right?
Right.
But sometimes he'll talk about a friend. I'll be like, "Oh, are his parents divorced?" And he'll be like, "I don't know. What is he like?" I mean, I'll ask him questions. Or I remember there was like the first girl he liked, and I'd ask him like, "Do you know this about?" He knew nothing about her, and I was like,
Right.
"Why do you like her? Like, what
Right.
do you know about her?"
Right. Right.
But it was so interesting that like he didn't even see why it would be important to know those things about someone. And I don't know. I think that is that because he's a boy. I think it's different. Like girls, when you make a new friend, you ask questions. I don't know. I don't know why
And
guys just don't.
I wonder what the standing point is. Like why a woman's disposition is maybe more naturally to inquire about a person and a guy's isn't. I don't know.
I'll tell him like, why don't you ask this, that, like ask questions? And he was like, well, that's weird.
Hmm,
Like he thinks it's weird that I'm even,
hmm,
why would I ask that?
hmm, hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
interesting.
very interesting. All right, so why don't we wrap up? How about some wisdom? What nugget of wisdom do you have for the audience when it comes to aloneness and doing stuff alone?
I think that looking at it as just like we said, the opportunity for growth and giving yourself celebrating your wins. I think even the small ones, you know, figuring out how to build that IKEA furniture on your own or, you know, the things that you have to do on your own that you don't think you were capable of doing, and being proud of that and looking at it as something to celebrate. Like celebrating those little wins, I think are really important.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. I like that.
What about you? What's your wisdom?
I would say that, sit in the aloneness, learn to embrace it, figure out what it teaches you about yourself,
Mm-hmm.
and use it to develop your weaknesses. Yeah. Don't come to enjoy it too much, and find people that you can enjoy your alone time with.
Find people to be alone together.
Ooh, is that the name of a book? Am I missing some reference there?
Maybe, but I like
It's
it.
the 5 people you meet in heaven. Something like that. I don't know. Okay. Well, friends, if you feel alone at times, don't forget to reach out to us at the Jewish Divorce Project. We're on Facebook, we're on Instagram. Why don't you share your stories of what you learned about yourself in isolation, in your alone time, doing things alone in divorce, and how you've really built on that. That would be really fascinating. Share that with us on Facebook, in the Facebook group. That would be a lot of fun, wouldn't it?
Yeah, or send us an email. We could talk about it in the next show. That'd
That's
be
right.
great. We'd love to hear.
The Jewish Divorce Project at gmail.com. As always, friends, thank you for joining us. Leeron, another wonderful conversation. Welcome back to this great season of ours.
Yeah, let's have a great season. We got to
Let's
get
do that.
next week. We'll see you guys next time.
Peace out.
If you're interested in becoming one of our sponsors or have questions and thoughts about the podcast, please email us at thejewishdivorceproject@gmail.com.
And you can always find us on social media at the Jewish Divorce Project on Facebook and Instagram.
And if you'd like to work with me, I specialize in divorce coaching for women. I can be found at mydivorceconcierge.com and on Facebook and Instagram at mydivorceconcierge.
And if you're interested in working with me for divorce coaching or spiritual coaching, I work with people of all kinds, of all backgrounds as well. My email address is noamrauscher@gmail.com. That's NoamRaucher@gmail.com. And you can also find me on Facebook and on Instagram at Noam Rauscher.